Hey, this is Gilly Woodhouse on the Osteo Business Podcast, talking all things osteo business. Here's Gilly Woodhouse, an author, speaker, award-winning business coach, and passionate advocate of osteopathy.
Hello, and today I'm joined by the lovely Keeley Taverner, psychotherapist and friend. And we're talking about money today, and
Absolutely.
trauma around that, the conversations that we need to have around money in business, which can make us feel uncomfortable at times and so on. So we're going to dig into that today.
Absolutely. So one of the areas that I'm really fascinated by as a psychotherapist who helps people is our relationship with money, which often traditionally showed up with clients and therapy and the dynamics that they were going through. But I've become really interested in terms of how our unexamined relationship with money shapes us and informs how we run a business. And it's one of the reasons why I ran my retreat last year on heal money trauma.
Right. How does that tend to manifest itself then, Keeley?
So generally, what happens is there are beliefs, patterns, and behaviors we have around money that are unconscious, that are actually informed by our relationship with our parents. So one of the questions I always ask busy business owners is, what is your first money memory? What is your first memory of money? And whatever comes up, I know for me, I remember one of the things when I think about money is I remember asking my dad for £5 once and then being scolded and told that I was being rude. Yeah. So to some degree, that experience, and I've also had a belief that there's never enough, and that I'm gonna have to work doubly hard, has all informed the unexamined beliefs I had around money.
Yeah.
And I know what's deeply personal is often universal, which has inspired me to increasingly help busy business owners to look at their relationship with money, which isn't about another spreadsheet. It's not about budgets and forecasts. It's around understanding whether we tend to have a scarcity mindset around money, or whether, for some people, they can hoard money. They're the person who's, got the hole in the shoe and has the money, but won't invest in themselves. Or there are people who tend to overcompensate, I'll worry about it tomorrow, and indulge, and tend to have another relationship with money that also has a potential to cause them challenges within their own business.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of my passions is people. I work with a vast amount of people pleasers. And what I've seen often in their relationship in business, that this shows up in many beautiful and creative ways, whether it's financial fawning, right? So overgiving, sometimes overpaying people. It can also show up in our personal relationships, in our gift giving, sometimes going above and beyond. So I'm really passionate about helping people to understand these unconscious, unexamined relationships so that we can understand why we continuously go round in cycles. And it's not about, I grew up in a council estate, there was never enough. And I've experienced social mobility, but those unexamined beliefs that I took away from my early years actually hindered me a great deal as I grew my business, undercharging, working from sun up to sundown to the point of exhaustion.
that's very common as well, isn't it? In the healing space, and certainly I see it a lot in the clinic owners that I work with. Yeah, they'll often be working really long hours, and
Absolutely.
98% of them I work with are undercharging, in my opinion, and I have to usually have a bit of a gentle tussle with them over my ideas of what fees they could be charging, so that they don't
Absolutely.
have to work so hard to bring home the bacon. And I often meet resistance, and I have to handle that really carefully because I know what's going on in their mind. They're like, all the patients will leave, they'll hate me for it, they'll think I'm greedy,
There you
um,
go.
and I have to work through this gently, and every single time I come out the other end, and they're like, okay, I can I can do this now. But it's that need for safety in that move that I think they're looking for.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. I mean, undercharging is also about our worth,
yeah.
and how we might value ourselves, value our time. And it's not only just the time in space with a client. Many of us have had to educate ourselves, invest in degrees, invest in continuous professional development. So it's also about understanding, what it takes to keep you in the room. But if there is a money block and an unexamined belief system, naturally it will come up against great resistance
Mm.
because there's a great deal of shame around money. And personally, for me, it was so essential that whilst I was working with coaches, I went back to a psychologist to help me examine some of the most delicate areas of my life in order to have the breakthrough and to feel at ease and comfortable with the new fees that I was charging, because we also know social mobility can also be very uncomfortable for people. People see the glory, they don't know the story.
Mm.
As you may earn more than your parents, more maybe than the friends you went to school with. So there's also this concern about, am I selling out? Have I forgotten my roots?
Mm.
That also can sometimes result in people playing down their successes with the ambition not to make others feel uncomfortable. Yeah.
Uncomfortable. Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's interesting, isn't it? And
Mm-hmm.
and all of this stuff's going on. Well, we don't even spot what we're up to, do we?
Absolutely, which is why, for example, if if clients are open to it, I'll always be, well, why don't we look at your bank statement, and then we can start to see, what might also happen with stress. Where does money tend to go when you're stressed? Because the
Ah,
bank statement is always going to hold the truths.
interesting.
Yeah. Is it shopping late at night? Are you a QVC kind of person, or Amazon perpetually dropping off parcels? What is your habit? So one of the things that is really important to understand is whether there's kind of financial soothing. So I'll make these purchases because that gives me a sense of relief, or there's financial avoidance behaviors. I'm just going to push that in the drawer. I'm not even gonna look at that. I'm not even gonna address that. Which can also, another feature can be financial hoarding,
Mm.
keeping an eye on every penny,
Clinging on to it.
clinging on to, and if you've got things like perfectionism in there, it can mean not recruiting for staff, doing everything you by yourself, which we also know leads to things like burnout and so on and so forth.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
also that aspect of getting rid of the money, isn't there? Some money's come in, right? How can I get rid of it? What can I go and buy, or who can I give it to get rid of it? And that's so unconscious that
Absolutely. Absolutely. What might it mean? Like, I
Yeah.
found myself looking at some Burlington socks the other day because I felt like I've got some long boots and I like the long socks. And then by the time I added to basket with an extra, spend another £10 and it's free delivery,
Oh, yeah.
it come up to £50. And so I just stepped away and seriously considered, well, if I want the garden office,
Mm.
this £50 impacts. It impacts. And actually, I've got 3 pairs of Burlington socks. Like, do I really need the orange and the red?
Yeah.
You know?
£50 outlay.
Yeah,
Right.
which only started at the firstly £17.
Mm.
And then, oh, there's another colour on sale for another 17. They're usually 25. Ooh. And then you get to, oh, just another one. But then the one I like is another colour which has an on sale. So the next thing, yeah. And there's always a money story that we have to examine.
Yeah.
And it's bringing that story into consciousness about what we saw growing up that actually relates to how we deal with money, especially as a business owner.
Yeah. Have you got any examples of stories like that where you're seeing people acting those behaviors out, for instance?
Yeah, so for example, when we were on the retreat, there was an individual who's done very well for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
come from very humble background, and often spoke about being bullied for wearing the Golas and the Dunlop trainers, and often buying yellow sticker food. So with the social mobility, there is the still buying the yellow sticker food and a massive collection of footwear that isn't worn, is pristine, and causes conflict in the marriage, right? So it's about beginning to look at that, to be able to understand how that shapes your behavior, and also how that also links into business. So the link with the kind of, we would say to some degree, some sort of, the challenges of the past, the relationship in the future meant wasn't recruiting, was working from sun up to sundown, and was becoming incredibly overwhelmed. And we noticed that the shoes kept coming.
Wow.
Yeah.
Never enough shoes.
Never enough shoes. So it's about understanding that there's an overcompensation to remedy the inner child that didn't have the trainers. But actually, if I could pull back from that, what might it be like to begin to let go and to pass on some of the tasks, the administrative tasks, the tasks that they could give away so they stay in their area of expertise.
Mm.
Yeah. We also know that kind of our relationship with one of my clients they came from money, parents lost money. And at somewhere in their timeline, they made a commitment to themselves that would never happen to them ever again.
Right.
So now you've got the toxic fuel driving the business owner, never experiencing contentment, and perpetually on to the next goal, on to the next goal, on to the next business goal, which is fueled by the trauma of the past. And so, because these drivers have never been examined, as I often say, people see your glory, but they don't know the story. Contentment eluded that individual. There's a constant panic that it will be taken away. I have to. So what often then shows up is stress in the body. And so we'll be looking at things like the grinding of teeth. There's always one that shows up.
Really?
Bruxism, which is often the back teeth often become broken due to excessive. So when dentists offer things like gum shields, this can be really important to understand. Okay, so what are my stressors? What? But like I said, if someone doesn't understand the unconscious dynamics that perpetually drive them, and like I said, everybody's going to celebrate your glory, but they don't necessarily know the back office in terms of what is constantly driving this individual to strive.
Wow.
Yeah. And at the other end, you're going to get, especially with social mobility, people who need to feel the need to continuously give back, leverage family members, employ family members, which isn't always helpful. Yeah. So that responsibility that gets taken on to make sure they feel that they have to leverage others. And when it's not working, there's incredible guilt. And I've been raised that I have to share, I have to give, I have to keep giving. So therefore, exploitation can sometimes become a part of the equation and further stress.
Yeah, because they can be vulnerable because of that.
Absolutely. And if your mum's saying, well, you're not to look after your brother after everything we've done to you, and especially if people, what I've also seen is a kind of responsibility put on adults who've been privately educated, where parents have made sacrifices for their education, and a strong desire to constantly be grateful to give. I've got to pay my mum's mortgage after everything they've done for me.
Yeah.
And the pressure that can also, the pressure that can also come from that desire. So it never ceases to fascinate me, and I think it's a very niche area.
Yeah.
Because when we talk about money, people do automatically think about budgets. Oh yeah, I need to get rid of that, get rid of the subscription, but not actually the deeper reasons that actually fuel our behavior, which is always in our money story and what we learnt about money, the beliefs that have shaped us from our early years.
Yeah. And as an individual, Keeley, how do we even work out we've got something going on in the background that's causing our reality?
If I use myself, I think for me, I felt like I was taking on loads of Bupa clients, and it gave me a guaranteed £60 per session. However, what I realized is I had my private fee, which was more.
Yeah.
But then Bupa's came in. And so because of that safe income, it stopped me driving the business. Oh, it's safe, it's enough, I'll take another.
Right.
Yeah. And then over time, starting to feel resentment, like, hold on, I've been doing this for 10 years and they're not going to put my wages up.
Yeah.
So you get to a point where you have to know your worth. And if again, the nervous system's reacting, oh my God, I'll lose everything. No one will pay me my fee. Yeah. That's linked to not being good and not feeling good enough. And so that's where, yes, I've had my coaches, but I've invested to do the deeper work around, the beliefs that I took away from my parents, who only ever had jobs. As far as they're concerned, you get a good job, you get a pension, work till you're 60 odd.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. And so when there's social mobility, I didn't have exposure to other mindsets, which is the value of joining membership groups, to have community, okay, oh, well, that makes sense. Start small, to start small, to see that, because actually if I can charge double my fee, then I only need one client rather than working for 3 hours. So it's it's risking and it's trying, and that's where the breakthroughs are. So for any business owners listening, I would always encourage them to be curious about what are the perpetual patterns you keep repeating.
Try and spot them.
Absolutely. What are the constant money challenges that you continuously have and that frustrate you, and year in, year out, no matter how you try, you don't get the breakthrough. And so one of the ways I help people is to start the journey is to take the money quiz. The money trauma quiz. Yeah. I'll hopefully you'll share the link. I'm happy for you to.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sharing the money trauma quiz, which gives you a clear insight into the patterns that you have around money, especially there's never enough, is a really powerful one.
Yeah. Because it's hard to spot what you're actually doing, isn't it? If you have habits that you've had all your life because of those early formative years, it's really, that's what you know, isn't it? It's difficult to spot. Oh, look what I'm doing there. That's interesting. And actually just being curious without beating yourself up, which is something we tend to do as well, isn't it? It's like, oh, you silly cow, why are you doing that?
Well, we always go for curiosity over judgment.
Yeah.
Judgment shuts us down. And because of the shame surrounding money, it is one of those areas that requires delicateness and curiosity. And people experience shame no matter what end of the spectrum, the financial spectrum, class background.
Really?
Absolutely, they come from.
Interesting.
Absolutely. So with that, it's also knowing that it's to tread lightly. You know, for example, if chronic financial stress is a massive factor for a business owner, then I'd be curious about what did you learn from your parents about money?
Yeah.
What did you see mummy do? What did you see daddy do? Was there any financial crises in your own family that may have shaped you? It's like, oh yeah, okay, that happened. So yeah, passionate about helping people to understand, especially business owners, because when we don't, and we're given another financial sheet or budget sheet to go by, we actually miss. I remember every December I used to be broke and be like, oh my God, every December it's going to be a rough month. And I just remember to go to my psychologist, and she said, well, why don't you just skim off every week so that when December comes, you're fine? I was like, oh.
Radical.
And so not radical, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. But also there's lots of other stresses that also factor in, so, payment plans, they can be, a way to that pull us in. I see lots of clients get stuck with Klarna as individuals.
Oh, really?
Oh, absolutely. If you buy one pretty dress on a 3-month payment plan, fine. But if you've got 10 of them, then it all starts to mount up. Our relationship with Amazon, for example, I know that my Amazon spending came down when I took the app off my phone.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's just so, if it's just there and it's in my head, I think, oh, I'll quickly buy that now.
Yeah.
Right.
Rather than stopping and going, do I actually need that?
Actually, absolutely. Do I need another book? Do I need, and actually, so that process, even taking the apps off the phone can be helpful, because it means you have to open the laptop, log in, just to delay if you can be impulsive when it comes to spending. If you have an impulsion towards spending, all little helps. All helps.
Fascinating. Oh, so Keeley, if this is resonating with my listener, how could they get help if they're thinking, she said what's in my head?
I would encourage people to take the quiz.
Yeah.
So that informs what pattern is showing and emerging. There are 4 types of patterns that generally show up. So they have that awareness. And then we can have a conversation if they feel that they would benefit from looking at their money story to understand deeper what their patterns are, what their habits are, and how some have been helpful and some coping strategies are just no longer serving them. As I said with my dear friend, you don't need another pair of trainers.
Yeah.
You can't give them to the child from yesteryear.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because it's almost like it sounds like it's a soothing thing. There you go.
Absolutely.
There's another pair of trainers, my darling one.
Absolutely. And when you haven't, when you're not conscious of the need to prove, this shows up once again. And remember, I think it's very difficult as business owners not to have our ego at interplay as well, because the vision comes from us. So when the money is not there, it's not easy to just segment. It can also feel like being a personal failure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And often for business owners, it can be very isolating and lonely. But
Yeah.
beginning to draw
Particularly
the
when, like,
dots.
yeah, we're like, when you're in a profession like a lot of my clients are,
Mhm.
then yeah, they don't want anyone else to know that it, it's not all rosy behind that front door, and the clinic isn't doing as well as um,
Yeah.
it
And
looks
when
outside.
exactly. And when you've borrowed money, may have even taken money out of the house, borrowed money from family members, it
Mm.
can actually be soul destroying, and that's totally understandable. And so the value in understanding your relationship with money is profoundly helpful, especially if you tend to avoid financially soothe or disproportionately assisting others when actually that money needs to be reclaimed.
Mm.
And so sometimes for some people, having the Excel spreadsheet is very overwhelming.
Yeah.
But what might be another way? So, for example, one of my clients I was working with hates going on to Experian to get their credit file checked. It makes them feel inadequate. It makes them feel bad. It makes them feel worried. So they banked with the Halifax. So I said, well, if you just scroll up on the app, it actually can give you a number there. So you circumnavigate your nervous system being activated and you just check it as you check your current account. Or small hacks.
Just yeah. Just so you have
Just
the awareness, but like you say, without setting yourself off into uh, unhappiness and judgment against yourself and all the rest of it.
absolutely. And we know, I mean, it's a bit like if you've ever been to Timu, one of their financial strategies is gamification, spin the wheel,
Yeah.
right? Or spend another £10 and you get free delivery. These are all deliberately designed psychologically to give us a sense that we are winning.
Whilst we're spending.
Whilst we're spending, and like I said, at the same token, there's the financial hoarding, the people who, perpetually save, who won't invest, and everything has to be kept. And at the far extreme leads to things like gambling addiction, stealing. So it covers so many, varied areas. And when we're not conscious, it's if you have a money pattern that you want to break, and no matter what you've tried to do with spreadsheets or budgeting apps, you've not had the breakthrough you feel you've deserved, then take the quiz.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Fascinating. So can you, in inverted commas, cure that perpetual behavior, or or is it that you just become aware? Oh, look, I've just caught myself. I was just about to buy that thing that I don't really need.
Yeah. I'm not always an advocate of like, let's cure this,
Yeah.
because we're very complex beings.
Mm.
I'm a massive advocate of developing our awareness.
Mm.
So just like Burlington socks are not on the way, that is a great example of kind of just pulling back a little bit and noticing, but catching it, catching it. For some of my clients, business owners who are people pleasers, this can also show up in terms of how they manage staff, not having difficult conversations with staff, sometimes overpaying, not challenging that accountability. So it shows up in many ways. So it's to develop what is happening in the business is also generally tends to be happening in the personal life.
Yeah, because how we do one thing is how we do everything, isn't it?
Absolutely. And obviously with what the business represents, it is so fundamental to get a handle so that if there are destructive relationship patterns with money, that you're developing that consciousness, and then together with accountability, you start to make different inroads.
Yeah. Oh, this has been fascinating. Thank you so much for joining me today, Keeley.
You're most welcome, Gilly.
Explore that.
Brilliant. I'll send you the link, take the test, and we can have a look at where you're at.
Yeah.
And anybody who's listening.
Yeah, I'm curious to know now. Thank you so much.
Take care, Gilly. Take care. Goodbye now.
Thanks for listening to the Osteo Business Podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe on all Gilly's channels, which can be found in the show notes. Gilly's back soon with more tips, ideas, and strategies to build your thriving practice.